Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks. It is 5:30 p.m. This is the Grand Forks Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, June 9th. Item 1.1 is welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Solsky.
Here.
Berg.
Here.
Lenski.
Here.
Friedholz.
Here.
Veen. President Sandy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, informational items 2.1's presentation, the Nest from the Housing Authority. Mr. Phelan.
Council Vice President Weigel, I mentioned at the last meeting that we're going to have Katie Jo Armbrust from the Housing Authority come forward and provide some information on the Nest, so she's here this evening. I should also note this will be a further discussion as part of the general fund budget that's coming up here in the next few weeks, but we thought we'd have a more deeper dive. Should have a deeper dive with you today and in anticipation of it coming up in further in the budget. Right now, it's currently in the mayor's budget. We knew it was going to be a talking point, so it is in the mayor's budget for our cost share. And I know there'll be a further discussion at the county commission for their cost share. So with that, I'd hand it over to Katie, and she's here for any questions that you may have this evening.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken, or Todd. So yes, my name is Katie Jo Armbrust, and I work for the Housing Authority as the Director of Program Development and Advocacy. I was here before some of you last year for this request. All right, so a quick recap of how we got here. So some of you were also involved with social detox, aka withdrawal management, that was previously administered by the Grand Forks Public Health Department. That was something that was not utilized as well as originally intended or utilized. They had a census of around 2 people per night in their 8-bed facility. While that was a great resource, unfortunately with its licensure, it was actually not able to serve as many people as originally intended. And so between a lot of discussions with community partners, public health, police department, homeless helpers, All True, ourselves, Northlands Rescue Mission, United Way, etc., our community identified a need for a low barrier emergency shelter. So when we talk about low barrier, that simply means that you come as you are, and as our biggest premise is if it's safe for you to be there. You know, are you able to conduct yourself in a manner that is safe for others and yourself for you to be there? So this required us to come in front of City Council, County Commission, get state approval from Northeast Human Service Center, as well as previously Altru's support. And we switched over everything to the Grand Forks Housing Authority last summer. And in the fall, on October 2nd, we opened for the first night and had 12 beds in the beginning, but we are a 16-bed facility. We did do some renovations to the facility in order to be able to serve more than just 8 individuals. So we have had at least 16 people, if not more, the overwhelming majority of the nights that we have been open. So a lot of the data that I'll cover here in a moment, we've served 134 unique individuals. And so when I talk about the number of folks that we've been working with and that have stayed with us, these are individuals that were unable to access other resources in the community. And specifically, we do have our staff check that individuals are unable to stay at Northlands Rescue Mission prior to staying with us. We have, the majority of people have been men, but we've had a lot of collaboration with the Grand Forks Police Department, All True, Northlands, as well as homeless helpers. There are times where we are at capacity or over capacity, and the majority of the time when somebody is in need of a place to stay and we are at capacity, we have fantastic staff that troubleshoot where else they may be able to go. So homeless helpers is usually that extra step, but there have been times where we've had up to 21 people stay with us when it is incredibly cold out, and we want to deter human beings from being out in the elements. Again, so we have 3 rooms. It is only 16 beds. It is a very small space, and our average length of stay has been 28 days. So I know there have been comments around people being able to come and stay for forever, and that is fortunately not the case. We're very lucky to have staff and community partners that we work with to help with the case management aspect of things, as well as our own staff that are there 24/7. But we're working with housing, other case management needs for whether somebody needs help applying for health insurance or Social Security, disability, employment, things of that nature. So it is something that, being the Grand Forks Housing Authority, this was not originally something that we set out to do. But unfortunately, there were a number of individuals that were accessing our properties that were unauthorized. And so we had done a variety of things with our partner, Grand Forks Homes, who's the owner entity of a lot of our properties, to try to deter people from staying in our properties, et cetera. But when the opportunity came with partnering in Grand Forks Public Health, it was something we couldn't say no to. Grand Forks Housing Authority provides a variety of housing assistance options, whether it's within our managed properties or vouchers that people can obtain housing throughout the community. So it's kind of a natural fit for us to be the ones leading this. So that'll bring us to today. The funding has been a partnership between the city, the county, Northeast Human Service Center, and we do receive Federal Emergency Solutions Grant as well as North Dakota Homeless Grant. Those were funding sources that Grand Forks Public Health was unable to tap into. And so going forward, those are funds. It's kind of tricky because with those last two in particular, the budget period is July 1 through June 30th, so they don't fall on the calendar year like the others do. Same thing with Northeast Human Service Center, that's on a biennium funding, so technically the first half of 2027 funding is also secured. I think I kind of skipped over it, but in regards to the regional data, I know there have been comments about the notion of if you build it, they will come. And while Grand Forks is fortunate to have other resources in the community, what we have seen is the overwhelming majority of people who are accessing our services are from Grand Forks or the county or the state, and there have only been a handful of people from outside. So yeah. With that, we were hoping to get additional data points to you in regards to the benefit and impact from both of our key partners with the police department and Altru. Both are very supportive of the Nest on Fourth and are grateful and appreciative to have it. But that's something I've chatted with several of them about is how do we better demonstrate that benefit and impact. We're looking to other resources with national statistics and things of that nature, but that is something that I'm happy to follow up with and getting you more key points. If you can think of anything that you have a specific question on, we would be more than happy to try to identify it. With that, are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Mr. Friedels?
Just real quick you have TBD for the federal grants, and I don't think you covered it. When do you find out what those grants look like for you?
Yes. So with those, we just applied for this next round. And so for the federal ones at this time, those ones are administered by the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency, and we should receive some notification by the end of the month. So those are in the current federal budget, TBD for fiscal year 26.
Okay, that was my question. All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Linsky?
Can you elaborate on how you determine they're not able to stay at Northlands?
Yeah, happy to. So individuals who are either referred to us or show up at the door, we have our program coordinator here, and either he or our other staff directly contact Northlands Rescue Mission and ask if people are able to stay or not.
And I'm just curious, so if the average stay is 28 days, are they getting treatment within those 28 days? Or I'm guessing they don't just sober up on the 29th day and...
Yeah. Great question. So we do not provide withdrawal management services. when Grand Forks Public Health ended their services and we opened up the low barrier shelter piece. We are specifically taking on the sheltering aspect, not any type of treatment. That being said, our staff do work closely with other providers, and if people are in need of or desiring treatment, those options and resources they are connected with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Berg?
Yes, that was loud. So this facility, is it for people who just may be under the influence of drugs, or what type of people can utilize this shelter?
Great question. Yes, people can be under the influence, but you don't have to be under the influence in order to access our services. That was something that previously it had happened a couple of times with social detox, aka withdrawal management, where people were trying to access them as a shelter. If they were showing up not inebriated, they were going and finding alcohol or substances and then returning once they were under the influence and therefore able to access. So no, you do not need to be under the influence in order to access our services. And we do not allow consumption of any substances while you are in our within the building. We do follow evidence-based practices such as harm reduction, and we are going to meet you where you are at in the moment. And, we're going to talk to you about how your substance abuse or whatever the case may be affecting your behavior and what's acceptable and what's not. We focus heavily on expectations, and treating people with dignity and respect has really gotten us a long way in our success.
And then during that average length of stay, those 28 days or however long someone's with you, what do staff do with individuals who are residents at this site to help them with their next step?
Yes, great question. We work with our community partners. So Spectra Health is across the street from our location, but there are a variety of other services in the community that people may be in need of or wanting or unfamiliar with. So we are first and foremost looking at if they are already working with another entity on their areas of need. And so for individuals as the Housing Authority, our primary thing is, have you applied for housing assistance if you are in need of housing assistance? And if so, where are you in that process? Have you completed the full application? Have you provided the documents? If you don't have the documents, there's something that we call, housing first is our philosophy that we want to follow, and that there isn't something considered housing ready, but there is a reality of document ready. And a lot of individuals may be lacking those required documents in order for us to, as the Housing Authority, provide you with housing assistance. So whether it's a driver's license, birth certificate, etc., some sort of form of ID in order for you to obtain those services.
So in addition to providing a shelter overnight, a roof over people's heads for the night, staff are also working with individuals to make sure that they're housed in the future in an alternative location such as an apartment or their own home.
Correct. The goal is always permanent housing. And so we are able to support people in identifying, what the best options that are available to them, where they may want to utilize them.
Thank you.
President Sandy?
Mr. Abel, Ms. Ambrose, thanks for being here tonight. I really appreciate it, and I really do want to say thank you for your time last week when we had coffee to talk about the issues that are going on at the Nest. I certainly have learned a lot from the time that we spent together, and I think it's wonderful that you are willing to not only meet people individually, but also show up in front of the council to provide information, and so it's much appreciated. I did have a couple questions. I'll be the first one to admit that I still slightly believe that if you build it, they will come. And but I appreciate that you brought in direct data to contradict that. A follow-up question I would have is on the Grand Forks. When you say that people are from Grand Forks, do you know of I think it was 58 that are from Grand Forks, and then recently the snapshot is 11. Do you know how many of those people are actually homeless?
Are actually experiencing homelessness?
Correct.
Everybody.
You know that for a fact?
Yes, we actually have not only a database that we utilize to connect with our other service providers and ensuring that people aren't, able to access other resources, but they also are doing certifications regarding their status of homelessness as well.
Okay, thank you. My other question is related to withdrawal management. So when the low barrier shelter opened, we stopped the withdrawal management program. I know that the plan was to develop a new withdrawal management process and plan. Where are we with that process?
Yes, that is correct. That is something that Northeast Human Service Center had agreed to step up and fill a gap in services so that there wasn't a lack of social detox. At the moment, they have a space right next door to actually where the Nest is in Center's building, and so they are providing those services within that location. They have had some setbacks with staffing as well, but that is something that their entity is going to be providing. And the idea was, and still is, that Share House provide withdrawal management on the medical level. That is something that our community in the area is certainly in need of, and Ultra would certainly agree to that as well. The closest place that we can send individuals for a medical detox is in Moorhead, which can be challenging.
So, just help me understand, I appreciate you said that you had reached out to Ultra and to the PD and you hadn't gotten any data back. When we started the Social Detox Center, the purpose was to provide a place for people to medically detox. We stopped that so that we could have a low barrier shelter with the plan of having a different location for medical detox. What are we doing? Is there anywhere in town where people are being provided medical detox services today? And more specifically, if the PD are running into issues with people, what are they doing with them? Are they bringing them to the Nest, or where are they going?
Yes, great question, and a slight clarification. So previously, Grand Forks Public Health was offering social detox, social withdrawal level of management, or social level, and that is a different licensure that is done by the
Medical.
state. They were not providing medical detox previously.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yes, and I don't want to speak for what the police do, but I believe if people are able, they are accessing our facility if they are experiencing homelessness as well as under the influence. If individuals, are already housed and may be able to go back to their house, they can do that. For individuals who may be needing a higher level of service or a higher level of care, then they would be accessing Ultra.
Thank you for your time.
Of course. And a clarification, I don't do the good work every day. It's our staff.
Thank you. I do have a few questions. On the PowerPoint, it mentioned for the data as of 5/31/25, 134 people were served. Do you have data of those 134 served? How many have permanent housing now?
Ooh, I don't have that off the top, but that's something I could definitely get.
Okay, that'd be great. I think that'd be good to see. When we go to, I know President Sandy's mentioned the if you build it, they will come notion. And you say that's not true. But just quick math on some of the data. When you guys began asking that question on December 12, 2024, about 22% of people were outside of Grand Forks. residency today, 31% of people are from outside of Grand Forks. So is that a trend that we're going to continue to see tick up, where it was 22%, 6 months ago, and now we're at 31%? 6 months from now, are we going to be up at 40%? Is it going to continue to go up, where maybe that notion is if you do build it, they will come?
Yeah. Fair question. I unfortunately can't necessarily predict what the future will bring. I think that's the benefit of having a variety of resources. So Grand Forks City contributes to our funding, the county does, the state, and the feds. So we're utilizing all resources in order to address the variety of individuals who are accessing our services. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be able to predict if that's an increasing trend.
Okay. You said something earlier about people that do have housing. So if I have permanent housing, I still can come and stay at the Nest?
No.
Okay. I must have missed that. I apologize.
Nope, it's okay.
And maybe for Chief Friedman or Deputy Chief Mackey, how many calls for service are we seeing from law enforcement at the Nest? Do we have any numbers on that?
It's something else we could maybe follow up with.
Thank you for the question, Vice President Weigel. So I don't have the number in front of me. It's a small number. I mean, there are going to be some calls. One of the challenges that we've had, and it's not uncommon, unfortunately, with records management systems in law enforcement, is when we get a specific request for data, for example, how many people have we taken there and under what circumstances? There's not an easy way to search that, but it should be fairly easy for us to run the address of the Nest and see what calls may have been generated there, but I think it's a fairly small number, but we can get you the specifics.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Mrs. Selsky?
Yeah, how long are they allowed to stay there?
That is a great question. We don't have a limit on how long people can stay. Our number one goal with individuals is to figure out the permanent housing piece. So, like when we talked about earlier, the variety of documents that are required in order for you to obtain housing, that can be a tricky piece. And the other part that we don't really have control over is how long it could take to obtain housing assistance through the Housing Authority. So for an example, right now, we have almost a 1-year wait list for housing assistance through the Grand Forks Housing Authority for our voucher program. Fortunately, we do have access to units that we manage on a much quicker basis, but in regards to how long people could stay, it is in no way, shape, or form our intent to keep somebody there long term. They have to be engaged and work with us towards figuring out where their next permanent place is to live.
Do you guys plan on setting any kind of rules or regulations on the time frame that people are allowed to stay there, or no?
At this moment, that isn't something that's considered an evidence-based practice, so yet not at the moment.
Okay, and you said that there were 134 individuals served. How many of those people were repeat offenders that showed up more than once?
Those 134 people, those are unique individuals. So in total, so this is where it gets kind of nuanced, we've provided a total of 3,813 nights of stay.
With only 134 individuals?
Correct. Since October 2nd of 2024.
I guess, so these 134 individuals are homeless then? I find that kind of odd because we just paid to have a study done on homelessness, and I believe the number was 79, and now we're down to 78. And so I don't understand why our homeless just continues to go up and up and up. That's really concerning. With the people that are from out of state, is there anything that you guys are doing to get them back to their support systems?
Yeah, that's definitely something that's asked is, if they're not from around here, is there, do you want to go back to maybe, your support system if you have other resources already established in a different community? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's
Have you sent any back to their home state? How many?
Pardon? We could get it, I would guess less than a dozen.
Less than a dozen? Okay.
That's my best guess.
Are all of these people U.S. citizens?
Yes.
I did some research, and I think something that I find really disturbing is the list of nonprofits that we have in Grand Forks that actually support homelessness. And so, in a lot of these different organizations, we don't fund as a city. And so I guess I'm kind of wondering why you're needing funds. We have, Development Homes is a nonprofit that helps with the mentally disabled. We have Global Friends that helps with immigrants. We have the Northlands Rescue Mission. We have multiple services for homeless vets. We have Red River Valley Community Action, which also takes care of Ernie's Place, which is a place for homeless youth. The Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, CVIC, United Way, the homeless people that support the homeless, Homeless Action that supported you guys doing this. We have the Red Cross, High Plains Fair Housing, St. Joseph's. I mean, the list goes on. And so I guess, Mr. Sandy has brought this up in the past, but are we duplicating services? And are you guys actually working together? Because it sounds like now, since we turn this over to you, if you build it, they will come. Now you guys are busting at the seams when we were only serving 2 people. And so are you guys even all working with these other organizations to provide housing? And if so, then I think we have a lot more than, 79 homeless people in our community, and I'm wondering where all these homeless people are actually coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets cold in North Dakota. There are not a lot of homeless people in the state of North Dakota because you really cannot survive unless you are housed. And so I'm really concerned about where these people are coming from. I'm also concerned that we no longer have a social detox, and now we just have a low barrier shelter that doesn't even have any rules or regulations on how long people can be there. I would like to see you guys, reach out to other people in the community and help with this issue. All the people that I listed off, none of them are at the city asking for the city for funds. And so I don't understand how they can do it without city funding, but you guys cannot. And I brought this up before we turned this over to you guys. I asked multiple times, are you guys going to be back up here for funding? I specifically asked that question, and all I heard was, I hope not, I hope not. And now here you are again, less than a year later, asking for the exact same funding after you just told me how much did you spend on renovating that new building?
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but less than 30,000.
Less than 30,000 to renovate. I guess I would like to see the amount of our homeless shelters or our nonprofits really reduce and get to the bottom of the problem and not just start popping up different nonprofits left and right, and then we're spending $30,000 on revamping, and now all of a sudden you guys are busting at the seams. I disagreed with this when we talked about it in October, and I still disagree with it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. Ms. Burke?
I just have some clarifying questions. A study done by Grand Forks was done that named 71 individuals who are homeless. Is that the point in time study that may have been referenced?
I was going to ask the same thing. I'm not quite sure that study that was done.
I don't think Grand Forks paid for that. Can you tell us about the point in time study?
Yes, across the country, every federally funded continuum of care, North Dakota only has one since we're a small population state. They conduct what's called a point-in-time count, and it is to identify the number of individuals who are staying in a shelter or identify those who are outdoors in areas not meant for human habitation on one night in January every year. In regards to some of the previous questions, there has been an increase in homelessness across the country. I think one of the nuanced things here is that while there might seem like a variety of people who are doing the same thing, there are actually a lot of agencies that are covering one sector of the population. So United Way serves families at risk of or experiencing homelessness. That is not something that we are doing at the Nest. Northlands Rescue Mission can help with families experiencing homelessness. But both of them would tell you, even with the ability to serve the number of families that they are, there's typically a larger need than what they are able to do. So I can understand the perception of a duplication of services. Unfortunately, the demand is above and beyond what they're able to provide. And that's typically where we see our other nonprofit partner, Homeless Helpers, come in, is to kind of identify and address the issues with overcapacity that we see across the area. That's something that, previously we didn't have a ton of staff that were working with individuals experiencing homelessness. And so the increases are more so a reflection of data actually being collected and people actually being identified as at risk of or experiencing homelessness. And the unfortunate part of that is it seems like it's a massive increase, but when we talk about the 134 individuals that we have served, those were individuals that were already in our community. It's simply that we're keeping them alive and giving them a safe place to stay at night. So those are a lot of folks that were within our properties and in other places not meant for human habitation around town.
Thank you. Is that it? Ms. Berger, do you have another question?
I was trying to find some information, but I know, so being homeless doesn't necessarily mean an individual is just living underneath a bridge or down by the river. What constitutes homelessness?
There are a few different definitions depending on what funding source or different department you are working with within the federal government. So a lot of individuals that we work with, we go by a more strict definition of homelessness, and it's for individuals who do not have a fixed regular place to stay, whereas if you were talking about like the Department of Public Instruction, their definition includes doubled up. We do not. So if you are staying at your cousin's or your grandma's, but you don't have your own place to stay, that double up is something that we previously and currently are not considering homelessness. And then I apologize, forgot to comment on your question around our partnerships and collaboration. The Grand Forks Housing Authority, and with our partnership with Grand Forks Homes, has been a leader and a prominent leader in addressing community issues and filling gaps. We work very closely with every agency that you mentioned. As I said before, our staff work with all of those different agencies to ensure that we're not providing a duplication in services. And a lot of those agencies have specific populations that they are working with. So we are grateful to be a part of a group that work really closely together. But that group isn't always the best at reflecting all the hard work that they do.
Thank you. 2 follow-up questions real quick. What's the longest somebody has stayed with you? How many days is that?
Less than 100.
Less than 100, okay. You've mentioned that homelessness is continuing to go up.
Yeah.
Ms. Osowski alluded to having a lot of nonprofits that are there to help people, and I'm all for helping people in their time of need. How do we solve this issue? At the end of the day, we have numbers continuing to go up and up and up. We're putting more and more money towards it, but the number's still going up. And so some would say that no matter how much money you throw at it, you're still going to lose. And so how do we solve this issue?
It's a fantastic question. It is difficult and simple to answer. The answer to homelessness is housing. And it doesn't just include the need for affordable housing. We need all levels of housing in order to ensure that individuals and households that need a place to live have access to a place that they are able to afford. So I would say housing is hands down the biggest issue when it comes to homelessness. We have a lack of housing that is affordable, because there isn't a overflow of units available. people are able to have higher standards for their renters. People find themselves in difficult situations and become homeless. Yeah, the answer to homelessness is housing, absolutely no doubt about it. And as the Housing Authority, we would say the extra part to that is the support services, because half the time you might be able to find somebody a place to stay, but helping them maintain that housing, whether it's maintaining their benefits, their health care, their employment. They hit a bumpy road and something unexpected happens. How do we help them stay housed rather than become homeless and have to even enter the system type of a thing?
Maybe one more follow-up. Of the people that have stayed with you, how many of them are employed?
Over half. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further questions? Ms. Linsky?
I just wanted to bring up, I had the opportunity to go to a CANA meeting, and I thought it was very impressive that you guys all use the same software to communicate. So I think that's important to point out too, that someone who uses services at one is entered into this software, correct? And so everyone can kind of see what services they have received.
Correct. So yes, we use a database called Homeless Management Information System. Not every agency is required to participate in those or utilize that database, but we are working together the best we can. Is there room for improvement? In any organization, there's no perfect program, there's no perfect organization, et cetera. We are doing the best we can with the knowledge and resources we have. And a lot of the times those funds are limited. So we're working together. I
Thank you.
promise.
Further comments? Seeing none, thank you for being here today.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
All right, move on to item number 2.2, Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan Update. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to do a quick introduction. We have Stephanie Halford here with the MPO, as well as Blue Weber with Bolton and Mank. They're going to do I think Blue's going to do a quick update of where they're at with the Safe Streets for All update. This is a process that's been going on for quite some time, but he'll give you a quick update on the, where we sit. So with that, I'll introduce Blue.
See if we have our slides up. There it is. Excellent. Got her. Perfect. Thank you all for having me here tonight. Really just wanting to give a very high-level update on where we're at in the process, what the next couple months look like, and how you're going to be seeing me actually more over the next couple months than you've seen me all throughout this process, other than maybe a couple of you. So like Mr. Brooks said, we've been working through this. Started all the way back in March of 2024, really on those last couple months. We're in what I kind of like to call the adoption phase, so really wrapping up the final report, starting to look at some of the different projects that are going to be possible to come out of this, but also really just kind of looking at what that adoption process looks like, because this is a very different plan than some of the other things that maybe you've seen in the past. So I keep using this term adoption. The reason that we use that is because this is a plan that actually needs to be adopted by both cities, so City of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, to really help the city engineering departments and the city planning departments and the MPO to start opening up some funding opportunities. So this has been kind of a driving force behind this, is that these SS4A funds are federal funds to really look at some safety implementations within the community. So this is everything from corridors to intersections and different safety elements. And so what that looks like is kind of guided based on what the community has told us. So an important point that I wanted to make is safety for all users is something that we've heard throughout this entire process. And so Katie Jo is actually one of our community advisory groups. So we had 4 advisory groups. We also had a number of input opportunities, and we had 2 council workshops. And so one of the things that I'm going to touch on is actually one of the things that we heard directly from that council workshop. So that was council members Lunsky and Berg, as well as 3 council members from East Grand Forks who helped guide some of that process. So with this term adoption, these need to be formally adopted by the City of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks to really open up that funding opportunity. So a couple things that I want to touch on here, and I'm going to touch on one really high level, and then we'll wrap up with it a little bit more. But doing this presentation here tonight, I'll be over in East Grand Forks tomorrow, and really just kind of making sure that everybody knows what these next few steps look like. We're going to be doing a joint council meeting, and so that's going to be on July 8th. So that's what I mean is I'm going to let Todd talk a little bit more about that as well. But presentations and adoption for this entire safety action plan really are going to be over the next couple months. So that means that this is going to go live. Our draft of this final report is going to go live early next week. I'm going to actually be sharing it with all of you. I'll be emailing you individually to let you kind of see what this looks like and start to give me comments. This goes out to the general public to get some comments, but I want you all to also understand I need your feedback on this because this is your plan. This is something that both cities came together to get that funding for it. So the elements of a safety action plan really are laid out by the federal government by looking at what elements of safe streets are out there. But the form of our safety action plan are these 7 chapters. You've kind of seen these over the past year. I've been coming and giving these brief presentations about everything from our area demographics, some of the different planning efforts that are currently ongoing in the community, as well as what some of the peer communities. So these are 4 communities across the country that we kind of mimic based off of some different criteria that makes us similar to them, be it weather, universities, community sizes, things like that. And then probably the thing that I'm most excited to talk to you a little bit about is this chapter 7. This is this really implementation strategy. So this is things like what are going to make these intersections or corridors safer, but also what are some of the different intersections or corridors that got the most highest scores when we were working on our data analysis and looking at that high injury network, which is an important piece of this. And so these I just kind of wanted to note. These are some of those highest scored corridors. And so an important part with the safety action plan, with the SS4A funding, is to try to bundle some of these projects. You never want to just go after one because this is an awesome, huge pot of money that you really want to try to sell this story of implementing safety within your community. And so we've been talking with both some of our steering committee members, Mr. Karanko and Ms. Edwardson, really what some of those look like. So how to bundle these, how to really make it into a good application. Our next steps here, like I said, we're going to be bringing that draft document out virtually, and then we're actually going to be doing an in-person opportunity for people to come and talk to us about it as well on the 26th. We're guaranteed going to be at one location, kind of working on location TBD to kind of broadcast that. But we will be out with this amazing plan, and I'll be sharing this with you guys early next week. With that, I'll kind of hand it over to Todd because one of the things that we heard so much was from all of our council members wanting to see a dual council meeting to kind of look at this really high level and fun plan.
Council Vice President, what I understand when I was able to discuss with Blue and Stephanie is that we have representation. I think Councilmember Lunsky and Councilmember Berger are on the committee, and you have counterparts from the city of East Grand Forks. So there was a desire to get together with both, use this as a trigger for both councils to get together. And so right now the proposal that we have in front of you is July 8th. That's a Tuesday. And it would likely be a noon hour lunch meeting where they would go through with both councils regarding this. From what I understand, that would add some value. And then if our council is so inclined, we would probably add a couple other things that we're working on with East Grand Forks along with this. So, we would probably give you an update quickly on the wastewater interconnect project. We're working with East Grand Forks on the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. So those are 2 projects that you don't hear a lot about, thankfully. So the only reason why you'd hear about the wastewater interconnect project at this point if something bad was happening. So you should be thankful that you never get to hear about that anymore. So those were our thoughts. We wanted to get your input, and specifically with our Councilmember Berg and Lunsky because you're on there. But that's what we heard, and so we want to accomplish what you want, but if that's not what you wanted, we don't want to have you show up and say, who asked us to be here. So with that, that's the period on that, and thanks for Blue and Stephanie, and congratulations, Stephanie, on your new adventure too. So So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Blue.
Yeah, it was about that dual council meeting. It was an awesome opportunity. This is very much a plan that was birthed by both cities. And so both these applications, but also something that we want to make sure that we're incorporating your voice. And so we kind of tried to plan that accordingly with some of the comments. So that way, when bringing that draft final report out to the public, bringing it to you all, we can really kind of talk through any things that we heard. Maybe there was a piece that everybody really wanted to kind of hone in on, or maybe something that was a little bit more something we should dive deeper into. So that was the goal of having it around that time. Would love to do it around a lunch hour, like Todd said.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Comments? Mr. Friedels?
Just to point out, some of these grants, like we talked about, they're pretty substantial, right? I mean, would you say between 5 and 20 million, some of these? So they're, I mean,
And that's just for the implementation dollars. There's also the demonstration dollars. And to really sell these implementation grant applications, partnering between the two cities, that means that you have two states who are working together, two cities that are working together. You can put together some really cool applications in that way. So being able to work with both engineering on both sides and planning on both sides, I think it's going to be a really neat opportunity to come up with some cool implementation strategies.
perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Further comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You as well. Move on to item number 3, discussion items. 3.1, design engineering agreement for project number 8795 70th Avenue North road improvements.
Thank you, Vice President Weigel, members of the committee. So I've got an engineering agreement for you tonight for the 70th Avenue paving project. This is way up on the north end of town. It's the east-west stretch of road about a mile long to support Epitome Energy or any other kind of development that might show up out there. We received $3.2 million from the Economic Development Administration to build this project, and we're moving forward with it just in the eventuality that something's going to end up out there. We got NPN, we've got Epitome that are talking out there, so this is just us getting ahead of it. To bring this project to construction, we got to get the design done for it, and we did a qualification-based selection process for the engineering services on this project, and Bolton & Menk was selected as our most qualified applicant for that engineering contract, and that is in the amount of $428,000 and some change there on the staff report. So it's a pretty typical engineering agreement that we'd go through with the city. The only thing that is a little different about this one is we altered the fee structure on it based on some of the feedback we've got from the council. We went with the cost plus fixed fee structure on this one, which is slightly different than what we've done on our past engineering agreements. This one works in a way where the consultant gets their working costs taken care of up front, and then there's a fixed overhead that they get to take off the top of that for a profit margin. And on this one, it would be 10%. This falls within the range that the NDDOT would use for their type of contracts that would follow a similar structure. So we feel good about where this one was at, and it's something we want to try and find a good balance of qualification-based selection while still keeping a good hold on where the profit margins are at on some of these contracts. So we're just looking for approval on this agreement right now, and we'll see how the new structure works on this one for us.
Further comment from the committee? Is there a motion to approve by Friedels? Second by Berg. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Danielson. Item number 3.2, MOU between City of Grand Forks and Grand Forks County for inspection services.
Vice President Weigel, members of the committee. What's in front of you is City Administrator Phelan came 2 weeks ago at the COW, talked about the county-city collaboration. So this MOU is created out of the collaboration between county planning and Department of Building Safety. It's pretty straightforward MOU where the county will pay us mileage when we go out to do inspections. And I can just give you a real brief example of how it's going to work. Somebody from the county approaches county planning, says we want to build a building. They go through, they do all the setbacks, et cetera, say, yep, you're good to go. Go over to the city, and they'll follow our process from the beginning all the way to the end, and we'll issue the certificate of occupancy. So staff's recommendation is to approve the MOU as has been vetted by the city attorney and the state's attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Baselou.
Stand for any questions.
Questions or comments?
The new wording is only good through the end of the year.
So Vice President Weigel, Committee Member Friedhoffs, we did talk about that, Mr. Magnuson and myself, and I guess I would defer to our city attorney. It is written in there for the end of the year, but we feel that that's administrative change that we could do. I would only bring it back to this body if there was any change. So we'd get to the end of the new 26, we'd just keep going unless I had direction that I needed to bring it back.
Maybe with that comment, I think what we want, Dan, is a continuous contract until we don't want it to be continuous. Are there some words that we could amend the agreement? And I think the county was good with that. I think when we were there, they thought maybe they didn't want it to come back every year, but I'm not sure how we would amend it, Dan, with the right words when we come back.
You would change, if you don't mind, you would change the language to say that the agreement would be renewed unless the parties terminate. It would be a pretty easy fix to paragraph 1.
Thank you, Mr. Gosted. Further comments, Ms. Berg?
What do we charge for mileage? Is it just the federal rate?
Yeah. Vice President Weigel, Committee Member Berg, yes, it'll just be whatever the federal rate is. So it'll go up and down.
Thank you. President Sandy?
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Mr. Gosta, do we want to take on the potential risk associated with us issuing a certificate of occupancy? In reading the MOU, Article 4 talks about reporting and the fact that generally speaking, when they ask us, we have to provide reports related to the properties we've inspected and the certificates we've issued, which, I mean, fine. I wonder why we aren't just packaging up all of our findings, handing it back to Mr. Magnuson, and then he can make the determination based upon our recommendation if they want to issue the certificate of occupancy or not. And then he can deal with his own reporting, and we can remove ourselves from potentially any of that liability.
I guess I'm reviewing paragraph 4. I don't see anywhere where we necessarily are issuing a certificate of occupancy in paragraph 4. However, with that said, there is a immunities, it's called a public duty immunity, that was adopted because there was an inspection done by another community, by an inspector, and there were some issues with the property. And at the time, that inspector then got sued by the homeowner or somebody that bought the home later on. And as a result of that litigation, the North Dakota legislature adopted immunities for, which is now called the public duty immunity for inspections or not necessarily conducting the inspections or conducting them or the results of those inspections. So there are immunities that are in place for that very reason, President Sandy.
Okay, I'll go back to, okay, so thank you, I appreciate that, and that makes perfect sense. Now, general question, do we want to issue the certificates of occupancy, or would we rather, and I don't know if this is for Batesville, Mr. Batesville, or for the rest of the council, do we want to issue the certificate of occupancy for the folks that live outside of the city limits of Grand Forks, or should the county be doing that based upon our recommendation?
Comments from the committee?
I guess I'd like to see the county do it based on our recommendation.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. Is that a motion, Mr. Sandy? With
Yeah, I guess, generally speaking, I think that the county should be invested in this process as well. We're partners in this, yes, but I don't see why the county shouldn't be the granting authority for the certificate of occupancy for properties that are outside of the city limits of Grand Forks. I think we can do the inspections, and I'm happy that we're doing it, and I think we should look at other ways where we can work together with the county, with the park district, with the schools. But I don't think it should be on the city of Grand Forks to issue those certificates of occupancy. And again, that's just my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Weigel. I will make that motion that we approve the MOU, but the issuing authority on the certificate of occupancy is the Grand Forks County.
I second.
We have a motion by President Sandy, a second by Osowski. Further comments, Ms. Burke?
Does this include the additional change of, that we discussed earlier about the length of time?
President Sandy, would you like to include that in your motion?
Yes, thank you. Good point, Ms. Burke. Appreciate it.
Ms. Osowski, are you good with that?
Second.
Okay. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baseflug. Item number 3.3, COPS grant. Chief, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice President Weigel and members of council. Oh, my inside-outside voice, that's probably better. So there are several documents that we shared with you. I'm going to try to synthesize those down into a more digestible presentation, and then as there are questions or more information, I'll do my best to address those. So we're applying for a COPS grant. We're asking for 3 officers. We think this is a great opportunity to better address issues that are currently going on in the downtown, to support our long-term staffing needs, and accomplishing both of those missions while recognizing and trying to respect the challenges the city budget is facing right now. Let me expound a little bit on each one of these. We've already heard obviously about the things going on downtown, and there are 2 strategies, broadly speaking, that police typically approach. Well, 3. Number 1 is reactive. We go down there, we get a call, we try to deal the best we can with what we're seeing. 2 is proactive, which is we don't have a call, but we go down there, we spend time, we assess, we look for trouble, so to speak. And then the third and the most powerful tool is what I call problem solving. And that's where we work with other agencies, the businesses, other partners in government and whatnot, to actually, instead of putting out the fires, we try to clear the forest floor of the stuff that's causing the fires. And in order to really be a good problem solver and to be able to sustain proactive work, having dedicated personnel in that area who become familiar with the stakeholders, familiar with the people, familiar with the resources, and can provide those relationships or build those relationships over time is a very powerful tool. So best, from our standpoint, the best way to address it as a police department is to have those dedicated resources that the COPS grant would allow us to facilitate. Long-term staffing needs, as many on the council are no doubt aware, this is something that the department has looked at for many years. I think all police departments look at this sort of thing. And we think having additional staffing, it's not about just achieving a number in a study. What additional staffing does is it allows us to keep ahead of things like slippage, like unexpected retirements, or people leaving the profession unexpectedly due to other opportunities. It allows us to dedicate more resources to that problem solving that I talked about, and it allows us to build capacity to deal with challenges we know are going to come. And the next challenge may not be the downtown, it may be somewhere else, but then we'll be having the same conversation about how do we most effectively problem solve or try to solve things versus then just react to them. And just as a broad point, one of the difficult things that police departments have is when a problem's been identified, it takes a year or 2 to get the staffing up to speed to deal with that problem, because we have to identify candidates, they have to go through a process, they have to make it through that process, then they have to go to get trained, then we train them in the field, and that process can take a year or 2. And so again, it gets very difficult for us to catch up. And so again, why the COPS grant's a great opportunity. And then finally, we have the ability to, as I said, the third component, that respect for the finances, we do have the ability for the COPS grant to subsidize. It's not free. The numbers will be up there. We can look at them, but it does allow us to accomplish several things at once. And that being said, Let me just pull up, I was promised this would be easy. Here we go. Pull up our
I do
proposal.
move
but-
approval, though.
Pardon?
I move approval.
We have a motion
Sorry.
to approve by Osowski.
Anyway, I'm here to, sorry.
That's okay. We have a motion on the floor, second by Friedolfs. Do we have further comments? Mr. Sandy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rego. Chief, I really appreciate the fact that you're taking a proactive approach and that the plan is to use these 3 new officers for downtown. I feel like we held Ms. Armbrust's feet to the fire earlier today, talking about the low barrier shelter. And so similarly, I think we need to hold your feet to the fire and our PD's feet to the fire in saying that this is a collaborative effort taking care of the problems that we have in our downtown. And I fully agree and are supportive of both the grant as well as the utilizing the funds to have police officers downtown. I'm wondering what exactly that means, because having officers driving around in downtown, in my opinion, doesn't move the bar. And previous chiefs, going back 15 years, weren't interested in having boots on the ground in our downtown for one reason or another. Doesn't matter that the past is the past. I want to actually have a good understanding of what the plan is for the future. So if you could help explain that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, President Sandy, and thank you. And even though I'm new here, I've seen similar dynamics play out. So a couple of things, again, if we're looking at the last about 2 months, we've had our downtown task force. And that's basically our way of dedicating as many resources as we can to dealing with the problem. And I was able to find one of our spreadsheets, and it looks like we've roughly had somewhere north of 1,500 contacts since we've started that initiative. And that's going to come, and those are officers we're dedicating down there. They're not going to calls for service per se. They're proactively contacting people, and sometimes they're on foot. Sometimes they're in the UTV or the OHV. Sometimes they're in their squad, but they're dedicated to that area. And so that's something that we have absolutely committed to from a reactive standpoint. The challenge that we have is sustainability. So the first 2 weeks of this initiative, we were able to fill every shift. And then over time, as officers have other commitments or there are other challenges that we're facing, it becomes more and more difficult for us to maintain that high level. And that even if we were to maintain a high level, it's still reactive. We're not addressing some of the root issues. So from my past experience, a committed officer to a specific area, so a neighborhood officer, community officer, what they're able to do is not just deal proactively with the issues that they see, somebody drinking on the street or passed out. They're able to work through education, figuring out, are we working with the right people to try to break the cycle here with this person? Does this person know what the rules are? Are they given, access to resources to try to get them from a place of need to a place of some service? It also gives the officer the opportunity to look at the environment. Do we have natural vacuums where these spaces were meant for people to come and congregate and have a good time and enjoy it with their families, but those same dynamics allow people to come and congregate and cause mischief? And are there things that officer can do when they have the time and the ability to work with people and they're not going from call to call or they're not dealing with fire after fire to try to address that? And then, of course, there's the enforcement portion. But I can tell you, President Sandy, that from experience before I came to Grand Forks, as well as what we've seen in the last few months, we can provide a lot of enforcement, but that alone typically is not going to solve the issue or bend the curve, because the moment we sort of take our foot off the gas, there's going to be those issues that aren't addressed because we're not affecting the environment or kind of hardening some of our spaces and hardening some of our rules. So it's complex. That role, those officers are going to be expected to do a lot of things, but what makes them different from what we're doing now or maybe what we've done in the more recent past is they're there to try to work with others whether it's other agencies, private or public, and try to break cycles. And sometimes that's going to involve an arrest, but other times it's going to involve a referral or a meeting with a business.
Thank you, Chief. And so, to further on that discussion topic, the police department's requesting 3 officers, yet in written documentation for tonight, the suggestion is that we need more. We still need more. I don't know how the budget is going to lay out this year. I do know that we have a 3% cap, but I also recognize that there are very few things that the city of Grand Forks is required to do, and one of them is provide the welfare and safety of our citizens. And so, of all the things that we spend money on, making sure that our community is safe is my number one priority. So I'm not going to put you on the hot seat because I don't want to paint you in a corner. But generally speaking, would more officers help?
Thank you, President Sandy. I'm a general believer that we can do more with more. We can do the same with the same, or we will do less with less. And so, as we expand, as the city expands in size, obviously we need to maintain some level of parity in order to just keep up. When new issues arise, like the downtown, that's sort of been an ebb and flow over the last number of years, and we want to really try to address it or maintain a higher level than maybe what we've been able to do in the past. That's going to require more resources. And so, I guess the long answer to a short question is, yeah, we can do more with more, but it's also, as a member of this community and representing a number of officers who live here as well, like, we understand that there are, challenges beyond just, the basics of what we do in the PD.
Sure, thank you. So my last thought is, and I won't take credit for this concept, but I also won't point fingers for the blame. In the spirit of collaboration that we've been talking about tonight with the Nest, with the Grand Forks County, has the police department, have we ever taken a look? Well, you're probably not the right person to ask. I wonder if we've talked to Grand Forks County, the sheriff, because last time I looked, the city of Grand Forks is almost 90% of the population of Grand Forks County. I do occasionally see a county sheriff with somebody pulled over within the city limits, but very seldom. I wonder if the county sheriffs, when their deputies are in our community, if they have a chance to roll through downtown, for example, or problematic areas, or the Grand Forks PD is slower in the summertime. Has anyone, or I'm sorry, not Grand Forks PD, UND PD. Has anyone, could somebody call the chief, the UND chief, and suggest that maybe UND PD could roll through downtown during the summer once in a while? And likewise, maybe there are times when the sheriff or UND PD need our assistance, and they could reach out to us, and we can offer to be more assistance in whatever that they need. So thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. I think that we have other officers in our community that also have a vested interest in our community being safe. I think if we extend the olive branch to collaborate with them, likely we will get positive feedback back. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Friedels.
Just real quick, do you have a long-range plan, like for anyone that manages a team of, 100, close to 100 people? You've got a few. You've got general attrition. You've got Johnny that wins the lottery on the weekend and just quits, and then you've got retirements.
Yep.
Do you guys have that range plan already? So because I think this is a great opportunity. So if you've got even 3 to 5 people in the next few years that you think are potentially going to leave or retire, this picks up part of the bill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A great comment, Councilmember Friedoff. And yeah, so I don't know what the numbers are offhand. I don't know my colleague in HR or DC Mackey, but every year we have attrition, right? And so that number varies, but I'm going to guess it's in that 3 to 5 range probably every year. We certainly, as part of our upcoming strategic plan, we've identified recruitment and retention as one of our core needs. It's a challenge many police agencies deal throughout the country with. We're certainly not alone on that. And, from a longer term standpoint, what I would love to be able to do is to have some resources like what we're talking about tonight, but also be able to upstaff my patrol shifts to allow for, officers to attend training, get more spontaneous time off, and be able to more proactively work on any given night when they're not handling calls. So yes, I think it's a challenge always trying to keep our actual strength with our authorized strength. But if we, the more we can increase our authorized strength, then when we do have those drops, we're not dropping it's not as relatively as much of a drop, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Friedoff. Ms. Berg.
I just wanted to note that I've seen the increase in officers downtown. I work downtown. I'm there every day, and I've also heard from a lot of individuals that it's been a positive impact in the downtown area. And so I want to thank you for that,
Thank you.
as well as the intentional approach to not be reactive or just proactive, but that additional step as well.
No, thank you.
All right, we have Ms. Lunsky.
I'm just going to second that because I have had a couple of meetings today. I've heard great things about the last few weeks, so thank you.
I'm very grateful for the efforts of my team. So.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Item number 3.4, Agristo Tax Incentive Application and Set Public Hearing. Mr. Phelan.
Council Vice President Weigel and members of the committee, good news. Good news is that Agristo is getting ready to start moving forward. And so, as you recall back earlier this year in January, you approved a memorandum of understanding that Mr. Gostad drew up. Two of the main parts of that were one with trying to move forward with a grant from the state of North Dakota. We were able to get a forgivable line of credit of $30 million. So that was one check that helped narrow the gap with a site in Wisconsin. The other part was this 90% 20-year tax incentive. And so we're back here. Certainly, Agristo is going to work with the Department of Ag on that grant. They expect that grant application process to start in July. And so probably that'll take a couple months. So I would assume by, August, September, they'll be moving forward with that $30 million, which really was intended for infrastructure and land acquisition and all those sorts of things. The other part was when we went to the 90% 20-year tax incentive, that was to compete again with the alternative site in Wisconsin. They were offering Agristo a smaller site. However, they were offering 100% tax incentive over 20 years. And in an added benefit in Wisconsin, they don't, with the incentive, unlike in North Dakota and Grand Forks, the land isn't taxable either. So in this case, if you look at what we're proposing here, we're proposing right now, Maureen Storstead and Tammy Lazur worked on kind of the pro forma that's within your packet here. But the land is estimated about $11 million, and so that will become a fully valued industrial piece of property. Mr. Christian Danielson was here earlier. He's worked on a lot on the infrastructure component part of that. So we're going to continue to do more on that. Overall, we're estimating the value of that at about $186 million of that $450 million investment for the site itself. So that's what that pro forma looks at as we move forward. Next week, Ward Clairbout is going to be here. He's Agristo's Legal and External Affairs Director for International Investments. He's going to be here next week, along with Ruben Davos, who's really the site construction lead for that. They're going to be here next week, Monday. We're going to be doing some work with them. Ruben, on behalf of the construction site, is going to be working on some environmental construction matters with the city of Grand Forks and others. And then Ward's going to be here and going to be working with Mr. Gostad and myself on the development agreement itself. We did present a draft development agreement to them while we were in Belgium. And so there's a few matters they'd like to discuss, but I would anticipate the development agreement moving forward too, through the similar July, August timeframe that's coming up. With that, I just want to note, even though, we are deferring this 90% of this, of the tax incentive for over 20 years, I made note that even at that 10% value that we are going to tax, that's over $476,000 per year. And that's one of our highest paid taxpayers in Grand Forks. I would say the only other one would be a similar company that also does potato processing. Is at a higher value and at a higher taxable rate. But we were here last week talking about Cirrus Aircraft. Remember, they were at about $215,000 currently with their $13 million facility. So you can see the amount of primary sector value we're going to add with Agristo. It's going to be quite incredible, not only from the tax front, but we're entering in a whole new industry in our community with 300 to 350 new employees, and you can probably double or triple that with all the indirect employees that are going to be brought in here, along with all the construction activity that's going to bring. So it's an exciting time for that. We are asking you to now move forward with that 20-year 90% payment in lieu of tax. Set the public hearing for back here at City Council on July 21st, 2025. We'll do similar to what we just did with Cirrus, where we'll have a local government advisory committee meeting. Council Vice President Weigel and Council President Sandy, we were looking likely maybe the Monday, the 23rd, before City Council, similar to what we did with Cirrus Aircraft. And then in July, we would go to both the County Commission and to the school board for approval on this particular tax incentive. So with that, if there's any questions, we'll be back here next week. Ward and Ruben will be here to give you a more detailed update on what they're working on regarding the land, infrastructure, environmental, CFIUS. They'll be here to give you an update firsthand on all those various things that they're working on. And Mr. Gostad and I are hoping to meet with Ward prior to the meeting, so we'll be able to give you an update on what we talked about and maybe some remaining things that we're going to work on as part of the development agreement. So with that, I'd answer any questions, and you have Maureen and Tammy and Dan and Ryan Brooks, and we're all here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Ms. Osowski.
Yeah, I just kind of have a comment. I have nothing against Agristo. The factories that they showed us were wonderful. They're family owned, and they have verbally agreed, with us about the CFIUS thing because we haven't signed the development agreement yet. I guess the only thing that I'm really against is the actual pilot program, and just all of the money that the state is giving them with the $30 million and now a 20-year pilot. I do disagree with that, but I do hope that Agristo still comes to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. Mr. Sandy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Weigel. I'd like to take a minute to thank City Administration for what has been a major lift that's been ongoing for months. The Mayor and Todd and Mr. Gostad, even Ms. Osowski, who traveled to Belgium, deserve a lot of credit. Certainly our finance department working all the numbers. The community, our city really pulled together to make sure that we could make this happen. And the fact that we're actually going forward is really amazing. Megan, can we keep it down? Sorry, my apologies. My wife is a little loud in the background. I tried to mute her, I missed the button. We're providing incentives certainly for a very large company to come to our community, but we were in a competitive situation, and I think that we, both locally with the pilot as well as what we did at the state of North Dakota, getting funding through the legislature at the forgivable loan, It's really a big lift. I think people that don't recognize what we did, most people won't recognize all the work that went into this. And for us to be bringing in almost $500,000 for the first 20 years, as one of the largest taxing authorities or one of the largest taxpayers in our community, I think it's really tremendous. And Mr. Phelan, I'll give you a personal thank you because I know you always manage to shepherd these things through. And so I, Mr. Ryder, will move approval. And sorry about all the background noise.
That's okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve by President Sandy, second by Ms. Berg. Further comments? Ms. Berg?
I've been thoroughly impressed by Gristo this entire time, and I again thank everyone. As President Sandy said, the company seems to have a lot of values for both employees and the communities, and so I think it'll be a very beneficial addition to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Berg. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Osowski dissents. Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Item 3.5, Northridge Construction, the reserve tax incentive application and set public hearing. Mr.
Council
Phelan.
Vice President Weigel and members of the committee whole, thank you. This is the first, as you recall, thank you, several weeks ago, you approved 4 pre-applications to move forward through a further financial analysis. This project from Northridge Construction and Development is for a building they're calling the reserve, is the first. This is the reason why we tried to move this one forward. We wanted a test case first. Do these projects like this really need a tax incentive? So we're going to talk about that this evening. The other thing is, Mr. Miscavige is here on behalf of Northridge Construction and Development. They are trying to move forward with this project yet this year. The other projects were planned for at the soonest next year, and those are in review. And so also beyond Mr. Miscavige, we also have Ms. Michaela Hewitt, who's here, and I'm going to ask her to come up. She's been our principal and analyst for Baker Tilly over several years and over several projects. So if some of Mr. Weigel has been here and Mr. Sandy has been here, but probably from 2018 to today, she's reviewed several projects that are out of the ground or complete at this point. So she reviewed the Franklin on 4th, Memorial Village 1 and 2, Olive Ann, Peer Development, which is the downtown Hugos, and then the Beacon. So she's been the author of all those reports that with those projects. And so we had her review this. This is unique. You know, generally, if you would have taken us several years ago, projects like this would have moved forward without incentives, and if they did, it would probably be something that would be 5 years or less. So this is unique. I'm going to ask Michaela Hewitt to come up here to discuss, the process she went through, the recommendation, why it's needed in this case, and because this is, and also she's also preliminarily starting to review some other applications, just give you some insight in what she's seeing in other similar projects. And because she works for Baker Tilly, out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, she also sees other projects. So it's just not Grand Forks trying to move these projects forward, it's others. So she can give you some sense of what we might be seeing in our higher interest rate and higher construction avenue. So with that, I'll have Ms. Hewitt come up here and discuss her recommendation with you. And then also ask if you have any questions for Mr. Miscavige. He's here also to talk about the project itself, which is quite exciting.
Welcome to Grand Forks, Ms. Hewitt.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Good evening, Vice President and members of the committee. That was a good introduction into the report that's in your packet based on our initial review. We were asked by the city to review the request for financial assistance by Northridge for the proposed project. We are looking at about 155 unit project with a mix of studio 1, 2, and 3 4-bedroom units. The total estimated development cost of that project is about $37 million. That includes the construction, acquisition, soft costs, and some of the other items related to construction of the project. Included with the 155 units are about 155 units of underground parking, as well as about 180 surface parking stalls. So that's all part of that $37 million budget. As part of our review to understand the need for assistance, we look at what the total development costs of the project are. We look at what the estimate or the funding sources are, as well as then the operating performance of the project, including the operating revenues, operating expenditures, net operating income to support debt service, and then we look at their financing requirements to obtain the financing as needed for the project. So with this project, again, the financing structure is about 70% debt finance, 30% equity. Included with the financial information provided by the applicant was their initial lending letter, which did include the terms of the financing that is within the overall application. When we're looking at, again, the assumptions that we're including, we want to understand what the maximum debt and equity amounts of the project are that can be supported by the project. We understand how the lease rates compare to the market. Are the operating expenses reasonable? We also look at the annual inflators for both the operating revenues and expenditures, as well as the annual vacancy rates, really to understand overall are the assumptions that are used to provide the pro forma and show the need for assistance, are they reasonable? The initial request from the applicant was a 20-year, 100% tax exemption. When we reviewed the project, when we look at without the exemption, so if they're paying full taxes on the property, which is estimated to be about $445,000 upon completion of the total value at about $27 million. The annual operating revenues or net operating income that's available to support debt service are not sufficient to meet the minimum debt coverage requirements of the project. So again, when we're looking at the total operating pro forma with and without assistance, without a property tax exemption, we're going to expect to see a higher operating expenses, lower net revenue available to support debt service, and overall reduction in what the cash flow is available to support a reasonable return. So without the incentive through the exemption, the cash flow is not sufficient to do two things. One, to meet minimum debt coverage requirements as necessary by their lender to obtain the 70% financing. And two, then it's actually negative cash flow, so there's no return on the equity investor for the project. So what that tells us is that there is a need for a property tax exemption to provide that additional cash flow, and by doing so does increase the availability of revenues to make the minimum, to make the debt service payments and meet the minimum coverage of the 1.3 times, which is what's included in their primary lender letter, as well as provide additional cash flow that's necessary to provide a reasonable rate of return. When discussing the reasonable rate of return, what we typically look at is the internal rate of return, which is a measurement of the cash flows over either a 10 or a 15-year period. What we want to understand is two things with that. One, is there, again, available cash flow to support the minimum debt service payments and meet minimum coverage as required? And two, what the projected rate of return of that annual cash flow and a hypothetical sale of that property in the 15th year, which is essentially saying, based on what the developer's initial equity investment and total project cost, total investment into the project, what accumulation of the annual revenues or annual cash flow, and the estimated value of that asset upon a hypothetical sale. This helps us to understand that not only do we want to look at the minimum metrics and financial performance of the project to support the debt service, but then also is the level of exemption that's being requested provided a reasonable return to the applicant. So when we look at the internal rate of return and we look over a 15-year period of time, We do see that there is a need, as I mentioned, to meet minimum debt coverage requirements in the early years, and hence but then as cash flow is growing within the project stabilizes, there is anticipated to be a increased cash flow resulting in the recommendation to reduce the percentage over the 15 years. So the recommendation is to reduce from the full 20-year 100% exemption down to a 15-year exemption with 5 years at 100%, the next 5 years at 80%, and the remaining 5 years at 60%, for a blended 80% over 15 years. The primary driver for the need for assistance, as I mentioned, is based on cash flow. The current market is still not favorable for interest rates and overall construction costs. So when we're looking at the performance of this project and looking at the total development cost, the maximum number of debt or maximum amount of debt that can be used for this project, and I will say that 70% is a higher percentage than I've been seeing. A lot of projects are only 50% or 60% debt, which requires a significant amount of equity to finance the total project. That being said, the only way that the 70% amount works is with the exemption. So another way to think about it is that if there was no exemption, they would have to reduce their debt financing to amount to meet that minimum 1.3 coverage. And that would probably be closer to 55, 60%, meaning there's a greater level of equity that would be required in the project. However, the cash flow would not be strong enough to support a higher level of equity investment. So overall, the project as structured, based on what's being represented with both the total sources and uses, the operating performance, and taking in accumulation the overall return on the project. Again, the recommendation is for a reduced incentive, 15 years, with, again, the blended 80% over 15 years. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the project review.
Thank you. Comments? Seeing no comments, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Move approval, Ms. Weigel.
We have a motion to approve by Sandy,
A second.
second by Berg. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Pose same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1 with Osowski dissenting. All right. Item number 4, City Council Member Discussion Matters. Ms. Osowski.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. Friedman. He's been very responsive when I've reached out to him, and he's done a good job just listening to my concerns. And I feel that he really does want the best for this city with really trying to address the situations that are currently going on downtown. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. Ms. Berg?
Yes, one of my kids recently had his bike stolen, and we helped him with reporting it, and he actually got it back. And there is a bike registration form through the city website, and I appreciate the law enforcement in returning, or for the support in returning my kiddo's bike. Thank you.
That doesn't happen every day. Trust me. Ms. Lensky? Mr. Friedolfs?
Air tags, put an air tag in my bike. I got no other comments.
President Sandy?
Thank you, no.
All right, I don't have anything.
I move
Mrs.
adjournment.
Osowski moves to adjourn, second by Lensky. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.